of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero. Chapter 102. Saturday, Part 6. To evade any unintentional bias, Shouta wasn't refereeing his students' matches, and since he wasn't needed for the first set of rounds, he made his way to where the tots were and sat amongst them.
"Shouty, that fan dance was really something else, you know?"
Quietly chatting with them, it was clear to see that they were all a little on edge. However,
"I'm gonna focus on evasion until I can gauge how my opponent moves, just like your daughter, Shoni."
He refused to feel guilty about them being involved because they were all family. Plus, they'd be integral in helping the Todoroki children who had never known friendship, who'd been homeschooled, and who trained or studied more than they played, Shouta in particular.
"Tamaka looks so cool up there, huh?"
God, he couldn't bear to think about them not having his kids to support them, especially since all of Cafe Leaguer's parents, too, were on board with the idea.
"That he does."
He smiled at Mirio, his words whisper quiet as the tallest, broadest blonde hugged Eijiro to his left and Tsuyu to his right as they all regarded the elephant-eared boy fondly. Then, very carefully, his gaze moved to Todoroki Fuyumi as the 14-year-old stood across from one of his oldest tots. She was looking ahead. Her brothers were sat together silently, neither of them talking, neither of them watching her. All the cat-dad specials in the world wouldn't be enough suffering for their father, would it? Sucking in a calming breath, he ruffled Nato and Hitoshi's hair as they leaned against him, his gaze soft as he looked from them to Izuku to Katsuki. Such good kids. Trying his best not to focus on so many eyes trained on him, Amajinki Tabaki sucked in a breath, held it for 3 seconds, and released it, just as Shoni had taught him. He couldn't believe sometimes just how far he'd come. 2 years ago, the very idea of entering a competition of any kind would have made him flee and hide beneath a kotatsu table shrouded by a weighted blanket, unable to leave until his father, Mirio, or his other friends coaxed him out. And now here he was. He had a blue belt swaddled around his waist. Moto-sensei, Takeoni, and Shoni had been so caring, so patient, so understanding of his anxiety, his fear, his self-esteem issues, He was really pretty lucky, wasn't he? Okay, combatants. Blinking out of his thoughts, he straightened up and gave the referee his full attention as the woman gave them the rules they were to follow. You'll notice that your area has a border, and by pushing your opponent out of this sectioned-off ring and into that space, you can win. She stated, you can also win by getting your adversary into a submission hold. However, we don't want anyone getting broken bones or passing out, alright? Therefore, if you can keep them pinned for 3 counts, you win. She added, low blows, eye gouges, and headbutts are illegal, and you'll be immediately disqualified should you use them. She furthered, similarly, no quirks are to be used at any time, and should I feel that either of you are going too far, or if you're in danger, I will step in and end the match. She nodded. It'll be down to the judges to determine if there'll be a winner in such an instance. Understood. Nodding after a swallow, the black-belted woman bowed at them and backed away to stand in the border. Now step towards each other and offer the ceremonial greeting of your discipline. Humming in acknowledgement, Tamaki took 3 steps forward, clasped his hands before him, and bowed. Fuyumi, her eyes distant, had her arms ramrod straight against her sides whilst lowering her head just enough to communicate a bow. Take your starting positions. Spreading his legs, his bare feet getting a feel for the soft, firm matting beneath them, the 11-year-old sucked in another breath, held it, and then released. The girl in front of him was reserved as she adopted a similar pose, her deep green-gray eyes trained on him, her lips pulled into an unfeeling line. Ready? They'd talked about the situation, of course. They all knew that them facing off against one of the people they were dedicated to saving was inevitable, even in a tournament this size. They all knew that regardless of anything else, they needed to give their matches their all, and they would. Especially since, as awful as it initially sounded, the faster they knocked the Todorokis out of the competition, the sooner they would be reunited with their mother and older brother. He needed to keep that in mind. Hasume! Watching his student and the second oldest Todoroki sibling fight told Shouta a lot about the girl, her state of mind, and how she'd been trained. Whoa! Tamakun's really mastered his blocking, huh? Regardless of the stern front she was desperately trying to cling to, there was a growing fear there. kick! A fear, no doubt, of losing, a fear of failing, a fear of not meeting her father's expectations. Expectations that had either been drilled into her by him, or out of a desperation to make her see him. He'd seen such things before, of course, during his brief flit into 4 foster families. He'd witnessed some of the older kids he'd been fostered with do the same. All of them desperate for recognition, to be good enough, to be worth more than just the paycheck their new parents were being given for their welfare. He knew theoretically that there were thousands of good people fostering and adopting kids out there. Oh, look at that with a combo! Good job, Todoroki! It was just that he'd not been lucky enough to meet such people. Not that he'd swap how he grew up with his brothers for the world. For out of all the things Shigaraki-san had ever said to him, there was one thing on which he'd agree with the evil old bastard. He wouldn't be the man he was today if not for his past, and as hard as it had been at times. He loved his family. They loved him. That was all that mattered. Oh! He's going for Jujikatane! Straightening up a little, Shouta sighed quietly.
I know it'll be hard for you to realize this just now,
he called to her through his mind.
But everything's going to be alright. You will be alright.
He furthered, his eyes watching as her movements became more frenzied. That neutral line of her mouth turned down, her fists tightening as she swung, her legs rigid as she kicked, her teeth gritting under the strain. Each match had a 10-minute time limit. They'd been fighting for 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Feeling a proud smile spread his lips despite himself, Shouta watched while his second oldest tot managed to swipe Fuyumi's feet out from under her, his body following through to pin her down, his arm swiftly securing her right arm, making her immobile. The referee skidded over to them, her eyes regarding the pair. When? The other Todoroki children still refused to look. Natsuo was scowling, a bottle of water at his lips, whilst Shoto was reading a book on battle tactics, his brow furrowed. It was clear that they knew what was going on. They just didn't want to react. They'd been trained not to. 3! Fuck! Neither of them could manage to bat an eye as the referee declared Tamaki the winner. God, how he wished they could have gotten to them sooner. This match is concluded. Amajiki advances. Allowing his kids to rush over and congratulate their friend.
Wow! Tamaki, your control is crazy.
Ha! Just what I'd expect from one of our best fighters. You were incredible, my dude! Ah! Tama-chan! I'm so proud of you! He walked with them, hugging Tamaki, before approaching the girl the indigo-haired boy had offered a hand to, and regarding her carefully.
That was an excellent display of skill, Todoroki,
he told her, those eyes narrowed at him as she swiped them, her teeth grit after she'd snapped at the referee to leave me alone, whilst pulling herself up. I don't need your pity, she managed, her shoulders slumping. You don't understand what this means.
I know more than you think,
he told her gently, their eyes meeting.
Now come on, there's an area where you can freshen up, have a snack, and get your thoughts in order.
He advised, his gaze momentarily flickering back to the boys still set, their pinched expressions narrowed on him. So there was some compassion there after all. Good.
What?
If you go with that member's staff,
he told her, his hand waving at one of the undercover police force officers decked out with a staff lanyard, a friendly face, and beaming smile.
You could go and take a break. I think you'll feel a lot better if you did,
he advised gently. But my father,
Todoroki, if I may,
he interrupted gently, his tone sympathetic, not patronizing.
Your father is uninterested and uncaring, and I know what it feels like to be raised by someone like that,
he told her, a flash of hurt mingling with shock crossing her features.
So I figure the best thing you can do is take some time for yourself, alright?
He smiled.
Surely owe yourself that much,
Blinking, her lashes fluttering, she attempted to look at her brothers, but flinched and stopped herself. She nodded.
Great,
he enthused whilst waving the female operative over, her smile never faltering.
My Sam, could you please take Todoroki Fuyumi to the resting area and ask Asobase-san to let her siblings know where she's going?
Nah, Aizawa-sensei, it'd be my pleasure. The brunette offered, her form bowing politely at the young woman. Come along then, Todoroki-chan. Oh, and may I say just how thrilling your match was, However, can you kick so high? Watching them go, Shouta shared a quick glance with the ref, who winked at him, before walking off of the platform to rejoin his kids, his irises slanting towards Officer Asobase as he and another masquerading police force officer ventured over to Natsuo and Shoto. From the way the 12-year-old nodded and the 9-year-old shrugged, neither of them seemed alarmed. Neither of them had reached for their phones to query her being walked away to their father either. Small, small mercies.